Hey! Merry Festivus to everyone! I brought my pole with me, the Festivus pole. And on this episode, I've got a lot of grievances to air out with everybody, as well as some feats of strength. Well, we're not going to do feats of strength, but you know the drill. Get yourself a beverage on, sit back, relax, and giddy up. Let's go! All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is the holiday season once again, and today on the show, of course, we're talking about Festivus for the rest of us. Well, per the world of Seinfeld, Festivus originated from an episode of Seinfeld, the final season, season 9, episode 10, which is technically called The Strike. So without further ado, let me put this Festivus pole, which is really a hot water heater rod, sitting in my garage. But it's going to represent the Festivus pole. Remember last year I had a dirty mop and a bucket with a plunger when I vented my grievances about Frosty the Snowman. You can catch that episode from last year. Good time. But today we're talking about Seinfeld. We're talking about the hit classic sitcom known as Seinfeld. I grew up watching Seinfeld. My parents watched Seinfeld. I jumped right in at a young age and enjoyed the antics of Jerry, George, Elaine, and of course, Cosmo Kramer. This guy right here is my favorite character out of Seinfeld. I love Kramer. Kramer is like my favorite character. But you learn a lot about Kramer, actually, on this season 9, final season, episode 10, because it explains a lot. And I got some grievances about that, too. So, when we're talking about Festivus, Festivus is really just like a one scene at the end of the show. But George Costanza's father, Frank Costanza, is the one that created the holiday known as Festivus. And we're going to get into that in just a moment, but just kind of give a little backstory of the episode. If you haven't watched the episode, go watch the episode. It is on Netflix. I just recently watched it and just laughed my head off, as I always do when it comes to these antics. But anyways, it's like a Hanukkah party going on at the beginning of the show. You know, Jerry and Elaine are there. Jerry catches this girl's eye named Gwen. And then here's Elaine. There's this guy with a denim vest catching Elaine's eye over here. And she's like, oh, God. And so he comes over, approaches Elaine. Elaine fakes number the dude. Jerry gets to go out with this girl named Gwen. However, things get a little weird because Gwen has this... She changes. She has this transformation thing. And it's really because of the lighting. If the lighting's good, she's pretty. If the lighting is bad, she's ugly. That's how it goes throughout the whole show. To the point to where she believes Jerry is cheating on her because what Kramer did later on in the show is like, oh, I know Jerry's girlfriend. You're not her. She's a lot uglier than you. I love Kramer. Anyways, going back to the beginning of the episode, George gets upset over a Christmas card about a donation being made to the Children's Alliance on behalf of him. He gets upset by that. He also gets another card, guess what, from his father, Frank Costanza. Happy Festivus, y'all! Happy Festivus! And he gets upset about that. And the memories of Festivus comes back to his mind. Apparently, George's father, Frank Costanza, hates all commercial and religious aspects of the holiday season. So he just decides to make up his own. On December 23rd, December 23rd becomes Festivus. His father puts up an aluminum pole in his living room instead of a tree because he states tinsel distracts him. It's very distracting to him. And then there is the airing of grievances over dinner. And then there is the feats of strength. The feats of strength is basically where you basically just tango with your father, in a brawl. And you have to pet him. And that's how Festivus ends. It's a weird holiday tradition for the Costanza family. It really is. It is so weird. But going back to the episode, Elaine is obsessed with this free sub. She has this card to this sub shop, and she's just so close to getting the free sub. And then she writes that fake number to Denim Vest Guy on that very card. So she's just trying to get that back. She goes to the horse races, and the horse race people are like, "Oh, Bennis! Hey, everybody, it's Bennis!" Because she's been giving out their phone number as the fake number. There you go. So she's trying to say, hey, if this guy calls this number, please tell him to call me, is how the whole situation goes. Just so she can get this dang card back so she can get a free sub. It is stupid. It is stupid. And the whole entire Seinfeld show is basically described as a show about nothing. This is nothing. Get over the sub sandwich card, please. So just go build you a sandwich somewhere else. I mean, come on. Kramer gets a phone call from H&H Bagels, which is apparently where he was employed at 12 years ago when they went on strike to increase their pay. And guess what? When he gets the phone call 12 years later that the strike has ended because they finally reached an agreement on the wage to be $5.35 an hour, which is the new minimum wage at this time period. So they're back in business making bagels. And so Kramer goes to the bagel shop and basically comes in all like excited that the strike is over. He's ready to get back to work and make bagels. And the bagel shop guy's like, "Who are you?" It's like, "Cosmo Kramer." "Oh, Kramer, I'm surprised you didn't get a job 12 years ago after that strike." That's the ridiculous thing about this, how you learn about Kramer. Kramer has been out of work for 12 years because of the strike. Well, the guy, the bagel shop owner, said, well, the other guys just gave up and just got new jobs elsewhere 10 years ago. Here, Kramer is the last of the strikers, the last person to hold the line of the strike. This is why the episode's called The Strike, because it centers around Kramer with H&H Bagels, who've been on strike for 12 years to dispute pay, and finally the minimum wage gets up to $5.35 for minimum wage pay, and that Kramer's excited. How has he been affording his apartment this last 12 years, being Jerry's neighbor? How has he been affording food? Actually, he's been sponging off of Jerry, probably. But I'm sure Kramer has all these scams and schemes that goes on during the entire thing as well. And that's why I love the character Cosmo Kramer, because it's just ridiculous. He's just absolutely ridiculous. Again, I'm airing grievances because we're celebrating Festivus. At Kruger Industrial Smoothing, which is a place where George Costanza works by the time of the final season, George is handing out cards regarding donations being made to the Human Fund, which isn't a real thing. People are getting these cards like, "Oh, the Human Fund. Thanks for this card that you have donated in my name. Wonderful." And then the boss, Kruger himself, gets the card. He's like, "Whatever." I like Kruger. He's a really fun character. He's really this boss that is just so laid back. He doesn't care. And to the point where he's trying to get into his office and it's locked, and he just decides to go home for the day. I'm like, it's still going to be locked when you get back. Are you going to go home for the day again? The next day you come back to work? Kruger is just, he's a weird boss. He's interesting. But Kruger also says that he needs to make a 20 grand donation somewhere, and he decides to choose the Human Fund, which then later on in the episode, it comes back from financing that there's no such thing as a human fund. And so George is like, starts going on this whole thing about how he doesn't believe in Christmas and doesn't celebrate it. And they celebrate something called Festivus, and which it does sounds like a load of crap because it is a holiday that his dad made up. And so I can prove it to you if I must. And Kruger's like, yeah, you better. So there's this whole gathering at this house, the Costanza household, Frank Costanza's house with his wife. They're serving dinner. Everybody's gathering around the table. The horse racetrack people show up there. There was a part where Elaine does meet up with the denim jacket guy, and she looks awful because Kramer sabotaged the bagel shop when there was steam, so her makeup and everything's all messed up. And so she meets the denim jacket guy to get the card back. The guy's like, I thought we were just going to go back to my place. No, thank you. Turned off completely by the whole look that Elaine's rocking. So she's never going to get her sub sandwich. Just build a sandwich later on. Come on. But anyways, they're at the house, and Kruger comes in with George, and Frank Costanza makes Kruger see the pole, and then he says, I find your beliefs fascinating. I do too. I find the whole Festivus tradition beliefs that Frank Costanza holds dearly fascinating. And Kramer celebrates Festivus. And here's the other part I forgot to talk about here. Kramer talks to Frank Costanza about Festivus and likes the idea of Festivus. He asks the bagel shop if he could have the 23rd off. Well, the bagel shop is needing him for the holidays. So he's back on strike again, ladies and gentlemen. He's back on strike because discrimination about his religious holidays and Festivus. Yeah, so Kramer's out there picketing outside the bagel shop. So at this scene, back at the Costanza household, they finally sit down and Frank Costanza goes off about, he's got a lot of grievances with everybody and every one of you all going to hear about it. And he starts off with Kruger about how he says, my son says your company stinks. And he tries to go on, and then he just loses his train of thought and just sits down. And I'm like, okay, this is going well. And there's been a couple of scenes where Kramer's like, it's a Festivus miracle, because Jerry's girlfriend shows up and sees Elaine, who still kind of looks awful from the whole bagel shop. Is like, that must be the ugly girl that you're dating, and storms off. So great. And then he's like, it's a Festivus miracle, goes Kramer. Then we get to the part of the feats of strength, and he's trying to give the honor to Kramer, and Kramer's like, oh no, I need to bail out. I got to work a double tomorrow because I caved. I had to use their bathroom. And then he looks at Frank and he's like, no offense, but this holiday's still out there. And so Kramer ups and leaves. And then George is upset because who's going to do the feats of strength? And Kruger, without a beat, whips out a flask, says, how about George? And takes a swig of the flask. He's got to get through Festivus somehow. And then Frank goes, good thinking, Kruger. And then he's like, come on and fight your father. And so they're trying to rumble in the house, and George is screaming. And that's the whole episode of Festivus for the rest of us. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great holiday episode for the Seinfelds. Whenever you celebrate Festivus on December 23rd, watch the episode, season 9, episode 10, The Strike, and celebrate Festivus. Air some grievances if you must, if you want to. Go rumble somebody for feats of strength. Just kind of wrestle a little bit, And then, I guess, have an aluminum pole. That's all there is to it about Festivus. That's it. What a terrible holiday. What a stupid idea for a holiday. Man. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe out there. Have yourselves a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We'll see you guys in the new year. Take care.